Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and a very interesting day of Call of Duty has just concluded here at the London Royal Ravens home series for the start of Stage 3 of CDL 2021. Upsets galore on the day we're going to get into today, but also OpTic continuing their good form for the start of Stage 3, but Seattle Surge on the other side of things, after certainly having a difficult group, they do not find themselves in the best spot. Storylines certainly to be discussed regarding the future of these teams. Intrigued to take your thoughts in the comment section below. Luckily guys, if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. First of all, this confirmation from the subliners, the moment you've all been waiting for. Hydra officially joins the lineup. Clayster, Asim, Mac and Hydra will be in the lineup for their match tomorrow up against Atlanta FaZe. That is certainly going to be an interesting one in the same group, of course, as OpTic and the Seattle Surge that played, as we're going to talk about in a few minutes time here. So the first game of the day was Paris Legion Los Angeles Guerrillas, the Minnesota Rokkr Mutineers, and OpTic versus Seattle Surge. And most people were predicting the favourites in these matches, understandably so, but it didn't exactly go to plan, well at least how I predicted these matchups to go. First game, Legion Guerrillas. This is where Chino comes into this lineup for the first time, and he has an absolutely cracking series. And I'm not really sure what to think about this, right? Because, okay, we talked about LAG, potentially one of the worst roster changes in CDL history, at least on paper, right? Bringing Chino in for Vivid, but it certainly works out for them in the first series, and very impressive, honestly, they played this time. Now, you do have to wonder, is it just Legion being terrible, or is this Los Angeles Guerrillas actually being pretty good? And I think they did play pretty well. They certainly played on maps, some more AR-heavy maps, which should favour them. I'm not really sure why Legion let some of these maps through the map set veto situation in the start of things, because they go on to a Moscow hardpoint, which, you know, when you've got Chino, Assault and Silly, guys that all like to run assault rifles, all using ARs at times on a map like Moscow, then, well, you're probably going to have a pretty hard time playing up against them. You really want to force maps that are a little bit closer range for Silly to actually, well, you know, being maybe difficult spots with the SMG, because of course Chino and Assault's pretty very solid assault rifles in their day, and well, continuing honestly today with some phenomenal performances here, especially at the start of this game one. I mean, they went up in a massive early lead, which was very impressive indeed. So I do wonder exactly what's going on here. Are Paris just pretty terrible, this new lineup with Temp, or, well, are Los Angeles Guerrillas actually a threat? Because they come in here and they 3-0 them. It wasn't really particularly close. We expect LAG to be pretty good in the search and destroys, but here they are in the hardpoints also putting up numbers, and they close out the control as well. So what do we think about Paris? What do we think about LAG? I'm not really sure, but as Paris says, you know, woke up to see Paris playing a team of 3 assault rifles on Moscow. Maybe that's not the play to make, and then they go into a search and destroy as well, and Chino's making play after play. So great to see this guy back to form, because of course he's been out of the league for a while. Certainly a player that's talented enough to deserve a spot in the league. I'm just not sure it was going to happen really in a 48 player league, which is obviously very difficult to get into, but you know, Chino lights out this series, especially game 2, game 3, he was absolutely on top form, and then they go into the control as well, and they close this one out in a 3-0 sweep to LAG. So we'll have to see when they play up against some harder competition in their Group A. I think they might have a more difficult time, but you know, maybe I'll get completely proven wrong and this team will actually be significantly better than it was with Vivid. I just can't really see that happening. I still hope that Vivid gets his opportunity somewhere else, but you know, I'm happy to see Chino in this team having some good success early on. I'm just not necessarily sure it's going to last. On the other side of things then, you've got the Paris Legion. What's going on with them? Because you'd have thought coming into this series, this is like a must-win series for them, right? If you want to have any chance of getting out in the winners bracket, you're playing an LAG team with really no practice time, brought in Chino only a couple of days ago, then you come out to get 3-0'd by them. That's really not a good look by any means, and yeah, we'll have to see what this team potentially does going forwards, because they made the change with 5 for Temp, but a series loss like this is not impressive by any means, and well, maybe this LAG team is just the truth. Who really knows? It's tough to say given these two teams are very recently formed indeed. As Octane says, there is nothing more powerful in life than the honeymoon period in Call of Duty. And while CDL Scrimintel says in reply, make a change then, take advantage of it, that is certainly something we may have to talk about in a couple of minutes time right here. As you can see, Chino 72 in 53, Assault also with a cracking series, but yeah, 14,000 damage from Chino. Great to see him performing great. And well, Scrap says, look, I just don't get it. We look godlike every day in scrims. Comes to game time and just goes south. Lost mega full. GG's to the Los Angeles Guerrillas. And then we go into the second series of the day. Also an upset. The Mutineers getting the better of the Minnesota Rokkr. Not something I expected, but at the end of the day, Mutineers certainly have this upset potential, right? They are a team that can pretty much beat any team on their day, especially when Awakening and Skies are going off, because you kind of know what you're going to get Neptune. He's a bit inconsistent at times, but he puts up relatively solid numbers on, well, a pretty regular basis. If Awakening has a great series, and Skies does as well, they're a very tough team to get past, and that's exactly what they do right here. But Awakening, when Awakening isn't playing well, this team really does struggle. I'm not necessarily sure Havoc has actually fixed that, but well, still, they get the job done here in this series. They win the game 1, they go to Search and Destroy, goes all the way down to round 11, and Mutineers get the job done here as well. Awakening got 13. On the other side of things, Priestahh goes 14-6 for the loss. Attach had an awful map 1, I mean, well, at least statistically. Attach went like 18-22 game 1. In game 2, he went like 3-8, I think, as well, but he did bounce back in the control, which was good to see. But Awakening, when he is on form, this guy is obviously an absolute monster. And then we go into the control. Minnesota Rokkr bounced back in this one. Priestahh has actually a slow start despite his phenomenal map 1 and 2, but he finishes off this map on an absolute tear. He does a great job over at the Tiki Hut here to get this, well, to get the job done on at this control point. And of course, the guys over in the Minnesota Rokkr are very good at raid control, and they close this one out in the end and set the scene for potentially another reverse sweep on the cards. That is not how it goes though. We go to a game 4, and it's the Assault Rifles once again putting on a clinic. Skies goes 80-75, Awakening 96-76. I mean, the amount of engagements this guy has for effectively a second main Assault Rifle, a very quick Assault Rifle player, is incredible. 1.26 KD, 18,000 damage. Like, this is remarkable scenes. I mean, we have Neptune and Skies right here putting up 15,000. The next highest in the lobby was Priestahh, who had a monster series at 17,000, but Awakening here at 18,000 damage. I mean, that is just absolutely incredible. When this guy is on form, it's incredibly difficult to stop Florida Mutineers. I'm really looking forward to them hopefully being a championship contender, because I think they can do it. They did it last season, and maybe this Havoc changes the move. As you can see, Havoc's not really doing anything in these series, but I mean, maybe he's being the facilitator for Awakening and Skies to actually become a little bit better and put up greater numbers, as Neptune did also in this series, because getting past Minnesota Rokkr in 4 maps is actually very impressive. I'm pretty sure like every single series Rokkr have gone to so far has gone to a game 5 with this new lineup, or well, pretty much every single one they've played. At least a lot of them have gone all the way down to the wire. Beating them in 4 is actually very impressive indeed. Honestly, all the guys on Minnesota Rokkr didn't have the greatest series. Standy especially, and Attach also, some of the guys that I've been putting up good numbers for them as of late, didn't have the greatest series. And well, as I've said many a time, on the other side of things, it's Awakening putting up a monster performance. And when Skies is also playing well, it is a tough team to get past. Is Havoc the long-term solution? Who really knows? But if the guys can keep playing like this, there is no doubt that this team is moving in the right direction. Big is no longer an accurate word to describe how insane Awakening is. I saw another pretty good one as well. Whopping Wake might be a good one to add to the repertoire. And then we get the final series of the day. That's OpTic Chicago up against the Seattle Surge. These teams have played a lot as of late. OpTic have always just about got the better of them in the major. I think it was the final week before the stage 2 major. OpTic pretty much had to win the series against Surge to actually get a good seeding for the major to get to the winners bracket. They did that there. They also beat them at the major, and now they play them once again here. And well, Dashy and Envoy started getting cracked before this match gets underway. And well, Envoy actually is the Game Fuel featured player, and certainly speaking of the Game Fuel featured player, he turns up massively here in the game 1. And honestly, it was really interesting to see, because a lot of the time we talk about stats on the scoreboard. That's certainly something we're going to talk about when this series ends, to do with the whole Loony side of things. But I mean, sometimes the stats don't necessarily tell the entire story. Right here, Envoy game 1, I think he goes 23-22. Doesn't have anything spectacular on the scoreboard, but the amount of plays that he made, which were just so impactful, and other players on OpTic as well, and on Seattle Surge, because I'm not sure OpTic played this perfectly, because there was a number of times where OpTic had the rotations. They should have been good to lock up like 40 seconds. They only really got like 25 seconds. Seattle managed to break in, and somehow Seattle managed to keep it scrappy and keep OpTic's lead to a minimum. And then towards the end, it was actually Seattle that took over in terms of the slaying. They ended up outslaying OpTic by 8 kills on this map, but they still lose right at the end with a phenomenal break from the OpTic guys. So it was a really interesting one. There was some discussions about spawns here as well from Spoof. You can see that Envoy kind of spawns behind the statue, even though Octane's looking in that general direction, but I don't really think these were the main spawn issues. There was some chaos going on around P2. The people weren't really confused people were certainly confused about what was going on, and Merc was struggling to decipher it as well on the cast. But they end up closing this one out. I mean, this break towards the final P4 hardpoint was pretty clutch from the OpTic guys. I mean, they got the kills when they needed to. It looked like Seattle were just about going to make this work, but as you can see on the KD standpoint from the Loony side, it's not looking too great once again, and there are significant questions to be had right here. Zuma was talking about it yesterday, I believe, on the flank, about like the whole idea of an in-game leadership type role. Does it matter anymore in this type of Call of Duty? Maybe it's a question we're going to have to be talking about in coming days, because, you know, Loony hasn't been putting up the greatest numbers, and if his team's also not winning, with Octane looking better, with Gunless looking good, with Prestinni looking good as well, and you still can't get past a team like OpTic, who haven't exactly been looking spectacular as of late. And I mean, of course, you're not expected to beat them, but not even managing to win a map maybe means that Seattle, with of course championship aims like every team has, might have to consider some moves going forward. So we go into the Search and Destroy. They actually go up 4-2, do to Seattle. Scump clutches a nice little 1v2 to get it back to 4-3, and then they close out the rest of the rounds as well. And a very impressive stat actually here that round 11 stats points out in just a second. Scump actually ends up being the guardian angel right here in the very final round. Dashy goes to hop on the bomb, and Scump takes down Gunless right when it matters. I mean, I'm pretty sure if Scump hadn't got that kill, maybe he wouldn't have been able to get to the bomb right in time. So Dashy just about gets there. Very clutch stuff from the OpTic guys. They win this map 6-4, and this was the stat from round 11 stats. In OpTic's last 9 S&D games, they've either won the game or it's gone all the way to around 11. That is pretty impressive stuff. 7-2 overall map count in their last 9 S&D games. So yeah, pretty impressive stuff. It should have been 18-1, you could say, talking about the whole 1 versus 3 Minnesota Rokkr thing that, well, you know, seems to come to mind every time we talk about it because, well, it's just such a legendary play. This then we go into the control. Flashy from Dashy. He, well, has a very nice final kill cam here over at this checkmate control. And despite, well, you know, Seattle decided let's get away from raid. Let's not play them up with 0 and 7 on. They still can't get the job done. OpTic looking pretty good right here. Dashy goes on a monstrous, like, 10 streak at a time. It's kind of funny. He actually didn't have the cruise missile equipped, so he only had the artillery barrage. And Gunless actually got streaks later in the game as well, but it wasn't enough. They closed this one out on the final defense, and well, 2-0 on the stage. Certainly a massive 2-0 week for OpTic. It's certainly a week that they had to have, right? You play against the Ravens, you play against Seattle Surge. These were 2 matches that OpTic had to win. It was the perfect schedule for them. We talked about a few days ago, the idea that, yes, they come in here in the ideal situation. They get the easy matches, ideally out the way first, and then they play, well, it slowly ramps up until they play Atlanta FaZe on the very final Sunday. But OpTic go through comfortable series from them in the end. But on the other side, you do have the Seattle Surge. And for a team that really was expected coming into the season, we talked about, okay, where can this team be? Are they going to be somewhere in the top 6 range? That's kind of what I was expecting. But I was once again maybe somewhat disappointed about Seattle's decision coming into the season with the way they were structuring their roster compared to some of the other lineups, picking up young talent, or at least having a substitute on the bench that's ready to hop into the starting lineup when required. Because other teams have done that to great effect so far. Every team in the league has made a change, with the exception of FaZe, OpTic, and Seattle Surge. And every other team seems to be pretty much moving in the right direction. Seattle, not necessarily the case. They improved a fair bit from stage 2, but here in stage 3, it's well, it's been pretty much a disaster so far. They didn't have the greatest result a couple of days ago. Now they play up against OpTic, they get 3-0'd. Loony goes 30-18-56, you know, 0.68 KD. KD, of course, doesn't tell the entire story, but as of late, it kind of has been telling the story of the Seattle Surge, because Octane's been putting up good numbers. Prestinni and Gunless have been better. It's, well, Loony, at least statistically, that has been holding this team back. On the other side of things, though, you do have to be concerned. The fact that Loony is actually, well, seems to me such an integral piece of this team's chemistry. The fact that he seems to be the only guy that can keep Gunless at bay for an entire year, as he did on Rise Nation back in World War II, without the team collapsing. And maybe that's the same thing with Octane as well. So if you get rid of Loony, I'm not sure this team's chemistry lasts very long at all. But discussions maybe to be had there in the coming days as well. And as Scump says, GG Seattle 1-3-0, start the group 2-0. Exactly the start that OpTic wanted to the stage, but as Octane says, close but no cigar. Same story all year, it feels like. Intrigued to hear your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm. I know you enjoyed this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well. And I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always. Take care, and I will see you next time.